The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And here we are with episode 90.
90.
What is the topic?
This is near-death experiences.
Cool. Never had one, but
haven't
very
either.
interesting. And I have met and talked to people that have.
Me too.
At least one I know of.
Yeah, me too. So I'm excited for this topic.
Me too.
Yeah.
Cool. Before we do that, do you have anything you want to share from last week?
I do. Last week, excuse me, we did Why Not to Fear Death. And we had a lot of really good responses to this.
Cool.
This is one of those topics that, like I had said in the episode, people, they want to talk about, but they don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
So I think this gives them a way to talk about, hear about it, and talk about it to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a little bit more comfortable with the topic to talk to friends now, I hope. But we got a couple of responses that I wanted to read.
Cool.
Let's see. The first one is from Kate. She says, "Hi, Samantha and Danny. I really enjoyed this week's episode about dying. I've heard you talk about suicide quite often and that you have a lot to learn when you cross over to the other side. What about assisted suicide? When you know you are going to succumb to an illness, is that still the same when you cross over? Also, I want to delve into Dolores Cannon's audiobooks. Which one is best for a newbie to start with? Thank you for all you do, Kate."
That's cool. And
Thank
that's a
you, Kate.
really great question.
It is a great question. From what I see and feel and am told, it's not frowned upon because
Right.
if a doctor will do that, you're on that track. You've reached that point of no return.
Right.
So for the most part, your soul is leaving your body probably most of the time, really, if you're that sick. So
Right.
I don't think it's frowned upon at all. I don't think it's the same. You're not ending the situation,
No.
you know.
I think it's it would be the same as like our animals, you know.
Yeah.
Who they're much more connected to the other side. They're aware.
Right.
So they're not terrified, scared if they are diagnosed with a terminal illness. We do that for them.
Right.
You know, we do that to be humane and not make them suffer. Why would we be any different?
Exactly.
I think what we're talking about in terms of suicide is if you're young, healthy,
Yeah.
and able,
Yeah.
and you do it, that's different.
Yeah.
You haven't been already served, basically, a death sentence by some illness or something.
Right, exactly.
So, yes, I totally don't think it's
Yeah.
frowned on. I don't frown on it,
No,
personally.
honestly, if that, I'm all for it. If that's what it comes to for me, I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather just be like, see ya, instead of suffering through time that I don't need to suffer through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Seems wise.
But
And then,
thanks for the question. That was really cool. Thank you.
yes, absolutely. And then for Dolores Cannon, I had told her, but I'll tell our listeners too, that I thought 5 Lives Remembered was probably the best one to start with because that's the first book that she actually wrote. It wasn't her first book that got popular, but it was the first book that she wrote.
Yeah.
So I didn't start there. I started with Between Death and Life.
Yep.
And I loved that book. And so I wouldn't discourage you from doing that as well.
Right.
But yeah, that's
Yeah.
where Dolores says to start is 5 Lives.
Both of them are great.
All of her books are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then I had one more that I wanted to read from Patricia. She's always really good about giving me like comments and notes and stuff after episodes. She said,
Cool.
quick comment about the episode. This is one I will definitely be listening to a dozen more times. I kept getting sidetracked by tears and processing. Tears of, yep, that is so me in the fears versus reality.
Mm-hmm.
Also processing as you went along because there was a lot to process and I was applying it to my life, things that really stood out. I will get back to you with more. Love Danny's enthusiasm because he spoke from his journey of learning.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Patricia.
Yes, thank you, Patricia. I love those kind of comments too. Yeah. So just wanted to say thank you and answer those questions. And
Very nice. Thanks,
and
everybody.
hope everybody did enjoy that episode.
Cool.
So, and then I thought maybe we should talk about, because we do like to keep up with what's going on for history's sake, with what happened last week in the United States, because it got really, really dirty here again.
Yeah, it got scary.
Yeah, it did, with the attempted coup, or however you want to describe it. I think that we had talked about in previous episodes that we had seen that it wasn't over. And it still probably is not over. I don't feel like it is.
I don't either.
So, yeah, stay home. Don't go near that area, the Washington, D.C., and just pray for our country, because it's gotten really sad and really fast.
Yeah.
But I think we'll come out of this better and stronger, and that there will be peace. It's just going to take a little bit of time,
I'm all about, praying for our country. I get that. But there's something that I feel like it's skipped in that statement. And that is, what about the people that occupy this country?
Well,
yes. Let's pray for the people.
That's what I mean.
I know. Yeah. But it's such a
general term.
Statement or a broad term that I feel like we're skipping over what's important.
Yeah.
And let's kind of pray for everybody.
Right.
That everybody's hearts can kind of just love a little more, that everybody can just listen a little more and relax a little more.
Yeah.
But
there's two types of people. There's people that hate this type of thing and people that love this type of thing. And for me and for you and in our spiritual lives, we hate this type of thing. This is horrible. But there are people that will fight with you over the fact that this is what has to be done. This is what's right. And I think for me, spiritually, I just have to walk away from those types of things and just say, no, I know morally that this is what's happening here is not right. Yeah. No matter how you want to portray it, it's not right. So I think we're learning a lot about ourselves, our country. I've learned more about history and how our government works in this last 6 months than I ever did before. That's for sure.
And I think it even goes beyond just the country and the people that occupy the country. It's the planet. It's the world. This has to be a broader thing, for everybody. And it's I kind of agree with you. I don't think it's quite done, but we will get through it.
We will. And I just heard this message of just don't worry. Just everything's going to be fine. Just, everything will be okay. Yeah. And that's for the majority of us. It absolutely will be, because we're going to stay safe, and away from dangerous situations. And the best for the rest is just don't put yourself in those situations,
Yeah, probably best not.
Yeah, but, whatever. Anyways,
cool.
I thought we should touch on that for a minute.
All right.
But that's all I got for you.
All right. Well, then how about episode 90, Near-Death Experiences?
We have almost reached triple digits.
We have. Yeah. We're coming up close. We are. Almost 2 years.
Yeah, that too. Getting pretty close. Okay, so near-death experiences. So, I we have the discussion group, and I threw out the question to them, has anyone here ever experienced a near-death experience? And they were very confused, I believe, on what they thought that this was. Because a lot of people were like, yeah, I was in a car accident and I almost died, but didn't see anything or anything like that.
Right.
Really what we're talking about here is what happens after you die. Right. If you are pronounced dead, or if your heart stops, or whatever the case may be. This is something that you can do without, some of this is out-of-body experience, too, and we'll get into that. So those are kind of different things, and I think people got confused there as well.
Right.
So let me give you the definition of a near-death experience, or an NDE, because they'll probably refer to it, that's a lot shorter, NDE.
Right.
So an NDE is a profound personal experience associated with death or impending death, with which researchers claim share similar characteristics. Some of the things people have reported after an NDE include detachment from the body, feelings of levitation, total serenity, secure and warmth, the presence of a light, intense unconditional love, and this out-of-body experience. Okay, so an out-of-body experience is a phenomenon in which a person perceives the world from a location outside the body. So I had talked last week a little bit about my grandmother had one of these, but I'll kind of explain. So the first thing that happened to my grandma when she had her near-death experience was this out-of-body part where her spirit came out of her body and she could see herself. She was floating above and she could see what was happening below. So that's what's considered the out-of-body experience.
Right.
You can take that farther. Like, you can do that purposely, on purpose. It's called astral projection, and we're going to talk about that next week as a follow-up to this. So that's kind of separate, but that's the basis of the near-death experience.
Yeah, so it's much more than, oops, I almost crapped my pants swerving
Yes.
out of the way and smacked a wall or, and I was injured.
Yes.
But this is literally, in some of the accounts and things that we've, read or watched or kind of researched, is literally people that have flatlined or being pronounced dead.
We watched...
or in surgery.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah. Well, my grandma, she did almost die in surgery. But we watched this series, or we're starting to watch it on Netflix, called Surviving Death.
It's good.
Yeah, and what was awesome, it was great timing when it came out, because the very first episode was near-death experiences. And so we watched that episode, and it was educational. It was amazing. That one of the main stories in this episode was about a woman, the kayaker, who had a kayaking accident and was underwater for 30 minutes. And she told all about the things that she saw while she was dead for that time. But I don't remember a whole lot of specifics about it, but I do remember that she said that at the end, it was her relatives told her she couldn't stay, she had to go back. And she went back, and she's alive, and she's well, and she survived without 30 minutes of oxygen to the brain. Usually without half of that, well, you can, die with
minutes.
Yeah. But as far as brain dead goes, there's a cutoff there normally, and she was way above that cutoff. She should have had major brain damage. So,
and she was in a very remote location.
That's right.
Which it was not even in this country. It was...
I don't remember where it was.
I want to say Puerto Rico, but no.
Puerto Rico's...
Not Puerto Rico. I'm sorry. It wasn't in the country. I know that.
I don't remember,
But they were in a very jungleless area, riding these rapids and kayaks, and when they finally got her out, they had to take her down this long dirt road to get her to some sort of vehicle, okay? There was an ambulance out in the middle of nowhere.
And this was the 90s.
In the 90s.
So there was no cell phones.
It was like Chile or something. I don't remember where they were at. But there just happened to be an ambulance sitting at this road's end where they came out of the trail. And she was rushed to a hospital, and she had to relearn how to walk and do a lot of things because of, her organs and things. But they shared with her when she was on the other side for that 30 minutes that she needed to go back, but they also shared with her that she was going to lose one of her children.
Yeah.
And that was probably part of the reason why she needed to come back.
Yes.
But they said, I think 10 years is what she said, but it was more like 12 years or something.
I will say, and I'm not disagreeing with the other side because, they're in charge, but I don't agree with that they told her.
Yeah.
Because it made her constantly think that he was going to die. She said that every day until it happened. Well, until he was 18, because she thought that once he hit that 10-year mark, it was done. And then, like you said, it was a couple years later. So maybe she had a couple of years of kind of peace. But all of those other years, she was miserable. She was always worried about him. And so when people ask me, like, if I tell them these kinds of things during readings, I usually don't even get those types of things because I don't think it's that we should know. I really don't. Then you just worry about it.
Yeah, but I think my interpretation, what I felt from it was because she had other children and a husband, that's why she had to be here. She
absolutely.
to help them get through that. But the point of all this is essentially, for me, is showing proof that the conscious doesn't die.
Right.
Your sense of who you are doesn't die.
Right.
So she's saying 30 minutes underwater, she could tell that she was pinned.
Yeah.
But she didn't feel pain.
Yep.
She had no panic, nothing.
Yep.
There was other stories in that episode about expeditionists that went up on big, huge mountains and had terrible falls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they would talk about being in complete, what was it?
Just a state of nothing. Like they were okay.
State of total comfort and wonder
Yeah.
while they were tumbling down a mountain.
I really believe that that's the case.
There was more than one report
Yes,
of
there were a
this
lot.
feeling by these guys that did this, that accidentally did this.
Yes, I really believe that that's the case. That if we suffer some kind of traumatic thing like that, that it does, like they call it, the adrenaline or whatever that kicks in and stops you from feeling the pain. But you don't.
Right.
You don't. It's pretty wild.
Right.
It's good to know.
I think our biggest hurdle is scientifically, how do we prove that just because the conscious, as far as we're concerned, is housed in the brain, but how do we really know that?
Right.
But once the body itself dies and decomposes, how do we prove that all of that goes on?
Right.
That you actually do continue on and there is surviving death?
Right.
How do you prove that? Well, the only thing I can see is by each one of our own individual experiences.
Yeah. Yep.
Which some vary, but some are very similar.
I think that that's a big part of life, is that faith, is that you can't see this soul. You can't see the consciousness. But I'll tell you what, if you've ever seen somebody after they've died or gone through the death process with somebody, it's pretty damn clear that that's just a shell there. Mm-hmm. There's something so, like, whoa about it. Like, there was just somebody there and now they're gone.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't
one
make
of the
a lot
ladies commented on that in that episode. And that was probably, for me, the most remarkable part about death, being, as I've witnessed it a couple times right in front of me. And like she said, and it so resonated with me. It's like, how could that one person 1 minute be there?
Right.
Same with the gentleman that lost his father.
Yeah.
One moment.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't well, they were sick,
Yeah.
or maybe it happened suddenly and you had no idea it was coming.
Yeah.
But so alive, so vibrant, to literally a second later, nothing, gone. It doesn't make an ounce of sense for me, like to say it's literally gone.
Yeah. No.
That it just died.
No.
No, that doesn't. This isn't an engine made out of aluminum and rubber hoses.
No. When my grandma died, I've told this story before, I kept hearing that in my head. I wasn't a medium yet, but I kept hearing it's just a shell. And I know now that was a message that they were giving me. It's because I was just staring at her, just like trying to figure it out. It was kind of the first dead body like that I'd ever really been in the room with and could just sit and look at.
Yeah.
And it's
a
kind
weird
of
feeling.
It is because, but it all made sense at that moment. It was like, okay, so it is a shell. You can see. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like when you take the batteries out of something,
Right. Because that
trippy.
aura, that energy doesn't sit there anymore. So you definitely understand the separation of, oh, okay. Yeah, that's just a traveling thing.
Yep.
A traveling suit.
That's exactly what it is. It's just meant to get us through this life so that we can use the hands and use the feet and the mouth and all the things that we need
in this dimension.
Right. Yeah, but they have to put the soul somewhere. So just because scientists can't find it per se, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That's what we have to get past, is that, we're brought up to believe that so-called magic isn't real, but it is. It is real. It's just our perception and what we've been taught.
Right.
So just because you don't believe that there's some kind of energy in your brain or in your body that doesn't stay here, it really can be scientifically proven, because energy doesn't just go nowhere. It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
That's scientific proof right there.
Absolutely. It can't die.
Yep. So usually, well, I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of times after a near-death experience, people will report changes in their psychological well-being. And not always, positive. Sometimes it takes people down the negative because they think more about their life and that kind of thing. But for the most part, it makes people more aware. Like, that's something that I've seen in all of these kinds of things we've watched too, is that it makes them more aware of what's going on, what's actually happening. Because you and I, when we first started this journey, we would see people out, and I still think about it, where we would be like, gosh, they don't even know. They don't even know what's going on around them. Like, they're just going about their lives completely oblivious to any of this.
Right.
But that's what happens, is all of a sudden you're just so aware of what's actually going on that it's like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
You can now feel what you can't see.
Right. What's interesting about this list, if you think about it, anybody that's listening that's had a spiritual awakening, listen to this list, because that really, I think it fits. The near-death experience. Reduced or eliminated fear of death, which makes sense because you've now experienced it. You've just come back. So, increased appreciation for nature. I thought that was kind of cool, because I think when you experience that and you feel that kind of like bliss, you probably want to find it again, and nature has the way of doing that.
Well, and another thing, that there are advancements being made technologically and medically that I think are bringing us closer to be able to prove that something else is going on,
right?
Besides
absolutely.
just a mortal 3D world. Like a couple instances or examples would be like Tyler Henry, where they put him the thing on his head and they map his brain waves, and they show that every moment that he's talking to the person that he's doing a reading for, he's awake and his brain waves are active.
Yeah.
As soon as he connects with the other side and he's getting messages, he's in what they show as a dream state. He's asleep.
Yep.
And this goes back and forth minute to minute, whatever's going on, whether he's talking to the person in the room or he's connected to the other side.
Yep.
There was an example in this show we're watching, and this wasn't a study, this was just being done, but they took a gamble, was the lady with the aneurysm on her brain, or the back of her brain, and they had to shut her heart, slow her heart down, and flatline her, and drain her blood for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So they could use this tool to do brain surgery and decrease the size of the aneurysm, because aneurysms are blood clots, essentially. So they're successful with all this, and in her, after the fact, after her procedure, she shares with the surgeon everything she heard and saw. She described to a T what the instrument looked like, the case that it came in, who was standing where. She could describe her point of view, the comments that were being made. That's incredible.
Yeah. That's what my grandma experienced too, because after her experience, she was talking about it to the doctors, and they thought she was crazy, and they kind of wanted to commit her. And she wanted to go home, and they're like, we're not letting you go home. And so she said, well, what about if I can tell you some things I couldn't possibly know? And it was just like that. She could tell the things that she could not have seen, things that maybe, you could hear and understand that, but she saw things like that lady. So it really...
That's an incredible advancement, as far as... I know that because science can't explain it, then why should we dismiss it? Right. Just because it can't be explained on a piece of paper. Right. Exactly. No, there's too many of these stories that, one after the other of these types of situations.
Right. Exactly. Let's see. Also, things that change with people, reduced interest in social standing and material possessions. And that's definitely something, too, that comes with a spiritual awakening. It just changes your outlook on what's important in life, and I can see a near-death experience doing that.
Yeah.
And increased self-worth.
Yeah.
For sure.
I can say that I've known somebody that it didn't necessarily affect them that way.
Really? Oh, yeah.
But I had a friend for years named Chris that was going through a terrible divorce, and he was in court with his ex-wife. I don't think the kids were there because they were too young, but they were all in court, and some hearing was, or judgment was given, and he was uptight, whatever. He went into cardiac arrest right there in the courtroom, and they rushed in the, paramedics and were basically giving him CPR. And he told me, and I totally believe him, that he goes, I had an out-of-body experience. I could view from above what they were doing, what was being said. And he goes, I wasn't worried. I wasn't scared. I wasn't panicked.
Yeah.
I was just observing. And he goes, and then I heard, and he goes, it wasn't like an audible voice necessarily, but you hear it in your mind.
Yeah.
It said, relax. You need to go back because your children are going to need you.
No.
And he ended up getting full custody of all 3 of his children.
Yeah.
Which was very, that's hard on
Yeah.
a single father. And I think he ended up being unemployed, and things got tough. But I don't think it swayed him enough to go down like this road of seeing it and really understanding or appreciating. I think life's woes still got to him a bit, but hearing him tell that story was incredible. It was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I was young when my grandma told me that. I distorted it for a while, but then because of my ability, she's helped me kind of put it back together. I'm like, oh, that makes way more sense than what I remember her telling me.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a trippy experience,
And I think of that scene in Bruce Almighty when Morgan Freeman's like, they're in heaven in the end, and he's like, so you want Grace back? And he's like, no. I just want her to be happy. Yeah. I want her to find the person that will treat her right. And, he just like taps him on the chest, and he's like, clear.
Yeah.
Like, boom. And he's like, what was that for? And he's like, clear. Boom. And all of a sudden he's back in his body. It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Incredible.
A lot of people, they say that they experience that kind of like click when their soul leaves their body or goes back into it. That's kind of a trip. And if you've ever seen somebody channel, because we were watching that show last night, the mediums, and the Surviving Death, the next couple episodes are mediums. And one of the ladies channels, and you can see the click. You can see when the soul comes in and goes out, and
she changes.
Yeah.
Everything
it's a trip.
kind of changes about her.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of reports of that too. Feeling like you're being pulled
back to.
Feeling the force of being pulled out of your body and then being pushed back in. So I'm sure it's a trip. I personally, I would like to try to learn how to do the astral projection, which is purposely leaving your body like that. But I get frightened about it.
Yeah.
But because we're going to talk about it next week, I do plan to try a few times this week. So I'll let you guys know next week how that goes.
Cool.
But I can imagine that has to be an interesting sensation.
I think you'll be successful. You're able to really, get yourself meditatively in the spot. I think you'd be able to do it. And as long as you remind yourself, I'm attached to this.
Yeah.
This energy by, this sort of invisible cord that it's not going to be severed.
No, I'm not worried about it. It's just, I think it's kind of an art. Like from what I've heard and what I've read, it's almost like an art. Like once you get it down, it's a lot easier to do it. But there's a stage where you have to put yourself in sleep paralysis, and that frightens me. I hate sleep paralysis.
Yeah, that I could see being a little.
So I've tried it a couple of times in the past, and that frightened me enough to just say, no. But since we're going to talk about it, I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
So let's see. So I wanted to find out, like, statistically, how many people experience this kind of thing, okay? Now, there was a Gallup poll that was taken. It was 20 years ago. But there was about 13 million people in the U.S. alone that had reported having a near-death experience at that time, 20 years ago. It's estimated that 30% of all individuals that face a life-threatening situation will have a near-death experience. There is no evidence that any sex, race, age, or religion has more or less NDEs.
Yeah. Nope.
What is interesting is that sometimes these near-death experiences have been reported as negative. That different things will happen. It's rare. It's very, very rare that happens. But I tried to figure out, like, hearing some of these stories, why this would happen. And I think that we've talked about this before, that a lot of it is perception.
Oh, yeah.
That it's about what you're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think, too, that it's possible that sometimes these are dreams, or you don't remember things. People, I'll tell them, your loved ones have come to visit you in a dream. No, they haven't. Well, yeah, they have. You just don't remember.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember their dreams a lot.
Exactly. So you may have had some kind of near-death experience and, remember bits and pieces of it. And maybe this is one thing you remember and grab a hold of it, the negative or whatever. But I think that there's a lot of reasons why that's possible. But I think it's mostly our mind that does that, where our frame of mind is at the time.
Yeah.
These are called inverse NDEs. Again, positives are far more likely. This doesn't happen much. But let's see. There's one that they call the void NDE, and this is where it's just black and your thoughts. And I've read a couple of stories about this where they say that they're just left there in this black void to think. I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah.
And if you're living I don't want to call it a bad life, but if there's things that are, going on in your life that maybe you need to fix, maybe you need some time to just stop and think.
Yeah.
And maybe that wasn't the only part of the NDE, it's just what you remember,
That's true, yeah.
A lot of people also report that it starts like that, like black, and then it goes to a white light. So, it sometimes evolves. There have been reports of different types of, like, hellish near-death experiences where people see, really weird things.
Yeah.
Again, they're very far and few between. And so I wonder, is this medication? Because there's no hell.
Or personal fears.
Right, exactly.
Again, it's...
There could be a lot of things.
Yeah. It has, it has a lot to do with your perception.
Right, exactly. This article that I was reading also said that there's 3 types of responses, basically, to the near-death experiences. And we talked a little bit about the first one, and that's the turnaround, where it's almost like having a spiritual awakening. Things start to change because you want them to change, There's reductionism, and that is that you brush it off as a hallucination or a reaction to medication. Which I think a lot of people probably do that. My grandma, she was willing to talk about hers, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that when they wake up from something like that, they just like, whoa, nobody would ever believe that, or, they're going to think I'm crazy.
Or it maybe felt like a dream.
Yes, very true.
And so maybe, like sometimes you have those weird dreams and maybe you do remember them, you don't really want to talk about it, or you don't remember them, but you have that weird feeling.
Right.
From them, it's that kind of feeling.
Yeah, we were talking about that recently, and I do get asked by people a lot, like, about when they have the, like, dream visits and stuff, and I'll tell you that if you're visited by a spirit, it will feel different.
Yeah.
You'll feel it. You'll wake up and be like, whoa,
Yeah.
I felt that. Like, I had one about my dad, and I hadn't seen my dad I haven't seen him since I was 18, and it was him right there, and he was just glowing, and he was huge. It was like he took up the whole dream. I don't even know how to explain it. But when I woke up, I knew. I was like, oh, that was Dad. There's a definite feeling to it.
Right.
So I would assume that when you wake up from a near-death experience, you probably have that same kind of feeling, like, I know, unless you are going to take this route and just pretend like it didn't happen.
Right.
I have to assume that there's some type of feeling there that just lets you know that it was real, or,
Yeah.
The third one is called the long haul, and this is where therapy and meds for PTSD come in, because sometimes, especially if this happens to really religious people, it can be really traumatizing.
Yeah, it might question.
It makes you
question a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you have one of those bad ones, or if, you have maybe something that even happened in a good one that you need to deal with, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay to talk about it. And
right.
Everybody has different experiences.
I hate to compare this, but it's been bouncing around in my mind all of a sudden, is that when they talk about the use of hallucinogenics like LSD and mushrooms, that a lot of whether you're going to have a good trip or a bad trip on this particular drug has to do with your state of mind.
Absolutely.
Your perception and how you go into it.
Yep.
So this is very similar.
I believe
we're dealing with a psychological thing here.
Right.
The consciousness.
Right.
And so very much the same, and we've said before, when all of our time comes, literally, whatever you want to see when you go is what you can see.
Right.
To comfort you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but you could uncomfort yourself by seeing the wrong things.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Like you said, with religion, then it might get a bit confusing.
Yeah. You might be like, whoa, well, how does this fit into what I've been taught my entire life?
Right.
Something that I felt was important, I think this was a message, is that it's okay to be afraid to die. And what I mean by that is that when we say your frame of mind, if you're like laying in your deathbed and you're afraid to die and afraid of what's going to come next, that doesn't mean that you're going to have a bad experience.
No.
A lot of times I think when people get stuck in that astral plane or they have a bad experience, it's because their life is maybe miserable at that time or because they're so stuck in hatred or whatever. It's the frame of mind, not at the necessarily the moment of something happening. Like, if you're like seeing that you're going to be in an accident and you're scared, that doesn't mean you're going to go to a bad place or, it just means, that if your brain is always set in that bad place, that you could absolutely have that as your first experience because that's what you've done to your brain.
Yeah. But that's not going to last very long.
No, not at all.
It's not going to last your eternity or the time you're on the other side. It's going to last as long as you allow it to.
Right.
So kind of like what they're telling us here is that you can tell yourself, even in the midst of an NDE or a negative NDE, that this is merely my perception.
Right.
And you can move through it. Because I think one of the stories the lady said was it was very kind of dark, which then it opened up into a beautiful path of the most beautiful colors of all the universe.
Yeah.
Not just the spectrum that we can see, but it enveloped everything.
Yeah.
In the fields.
She had to give it time. She had to let it,
Right.
And some people panic themselves. I did read stories about that too, where it's a beautiful place and you should be happy that you're there and you're panicking.
Right.
That's your frame of mind. They'll just sit there and tell you to calm down, but that doesn't mean you will.
The part of it is that initial adjustment
Yeah.
of you realize, or you're starting to realize you're not in the same place you were.
Yeah.
So something's different. And now acceptance has to be embraced
Right.
on some way before you can move to the next phase or whatever.
Something else that we saw in what we watched, and I read most of the time, is that time feels different. There's no time. No sense of time. Time is an illusion. We've created that. We did a whole episode on that. But that is something consistent with people that have had NDEs, is that they're like the time. Time just, it didn't matter. There was nothing. There was none of it.
Right.
I didn't know what time it was, what day it was. Didn't matter. So that's what happens when we get to the other side. So we shouldn't take it so seriously here either.
No, just be.
Yeah, exactly. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and I love this topic, is shared death experiences. I would love to experience one of these someday. And what a shared death experience is when a person experiences a part of the transition with someone that's dying. So a living person experiences a part of it with the dying person.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Wouldn't it? I've read some really amazing stories. It can happen to anyone, but more often it happens to caregivers or loved ones, like people that are really close to that person. Mm-hmm. When I was reading this, I thought my grandma gypped me because when she passed, the hospice nurse said that she wasn't going to die that day, and so I came home, and then she died. And I'm like, I could have maybe experienced that with her, but no.
I don't think you were in a place
No, I wasn't.
that you would have accepted it for what it is. Now would be different.
Yeah, I didn't even know that it was such a thing then. But I wonder if, like, her caregiver, who had seen so many people died, had ever experienced anything like that. One of these days I might have to ask her.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that maybe people don't want to talk about because they're tripped, same reason why your grandma wouldn't want to tell the surgeons what she was seeing and hearing. You're not sure, was it a dream? Was it real? That's kind of what I like about our show, is that we're trying to talk about some of these things that can be an elephant in the room, or some people aren't even aware that they exist. Yeah. But they're just not your normal topics, that should be talked about.
Yeah, exactly. So they say there's 4 ways that these shared death experiences happen. One of them is sensing. So this is when you know a loved one is dying, but you're not with them. This happened to the lady that helped me learn about my abilities, Maureen. Mm-hmm. When her father died, she wasn't with him. I believe he was in the hospital and she was at home, and she felt him next to her. And so she knew when the phone rang that he was already gone.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she said she saw him go. She saw him leave.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that cool? I would love that. Okay, witnessing. When the experiencer sees part of the dying process, seeing the person being greeted by their loved ones or experiencing a part of their life review with them. I read a story a while back that I didn't save. I wish I would have, but it was about a husband and a wife who the husband was passing and the wife was in the room with him, and she said that the whole room turned into a life review. Not just his life review, their life review. It was flashes and pictures of when they met up until that point, and it's like, whoa.
Incredible.
Yeah, isn't that? That would be really cool. There's accompanying. This goes when you go with the loved one down the tunnel to the light, but you don't go past that. You just walk through the tunnel with them. There's been a lot of reports of that as well.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the last one is guiding, helping.
That's pretty, just real quick.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Isn't that neat?
That the energy allows that.
Yeah.
To comfort one another.
Yeah. And I wonder sometimes if it's just like an accident, or, if they're like, I want my loved one to see this, or why.
I don't think anything's
so cool.
an accident, honestly. I think it's all desires and perception.
Yeah.
And if that woman felt like she could do that and be okay, and I'm sure she was comforted. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. That she would be okay if she accompanied him. Yeah. So he felt better. Right. Even with, in his own state and his own perception, maybe he felt like, I don't want to go with the spirit guide. I don't know this guy.
Right, for sure.
You know what I mean? It just made it easier. And it could be like, the mom dropping or the dad dropping the little kid off at preschool.
No doubt.
I'll see you real soon. Yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Be like, go there. You got to go to your light now. Yeah. That is really neat. That's why I like this topic, because it's a trip. And then the last one is guiding, and this is helping a loved one let go so that they can move on. So this is kind of like that, but you're like what you're saying. The other one, the accompanying, is more like walking them down. Right. This is more where you're guiding them, you're helping them. And you know what? I actually have people that ask me to do this with their loved ones. One of my friends, I think that it was her grandmother that was dying. I can't remember. But she asked me to show her that it was okay, to show her where the light was. And they weren't expecting her to die that day, and she did, like shortly after I did that. So I really truly believe that sometimes people they're dying, but they're kind of resisting, they just need to be shown that it's okay and where to go. And, do you have to be a medium to do that? I don't think so. I think if you concentrate enough and you focus enough that you can, just go to the light,
I agree.
To comfort, for sure. So, but that's a really cool subject, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
really
that.
Cool.
Yeah, I hope someday I can maybe experience something like that.
Well, even in like Soul, when it shows them going, and they're kind of like on this escalator sort of track that's going into the light. There's thousands of people on this thing, or souls on this thing. It's so you're not alone.
Yeah.
Regardless if somebody accompanies you from this side and then returns, or your spirit guide accompanies you, or you're standing in an ocean of souls, which happen to be many of your friends and family, most likely.
Yeah.
Some you've never even met your family.
Exactly. Yep.
But they're still looking out for you because you got a great-great-great-grandfather over there that you've never met that gives a damn.
Exactly.
And
people don't realize that, I mean, really for me, even like, it's hard because I don't see like my biological grandfather or my mom's dad. I don't see him a lot. He wasn't a player in my life, but I know he's there. I know he's there guiding me, and even past that, great grandparents that I never met, they're there, but I don't really see them that often. But all of these people are players in our lives, no matter how far back they go. And I don't know if we talked about this in the last episode, but one of the things that I've kind of come to realize is that how this works. When you get to the other side and you see your loved ones, like we've talked about this, like when I get there, am I going to see my mom or am I going to see her soul? And what I've learned is that they usually present themselves in the life that you just experienced with them, because you've been together in so many lives that I was like, well, is it going to be mom or is it going to be like, somebody from a past life? Am I just going to know? I think they present themselves as they were in this life, and then you can expand, because it's just like anything else.
Right.
Just because it's heaven doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden like know everything and it's all good. Right. There's an adjustment period.
I think it takes you have to go through a couple steps when you return, like your review and rest, and and with, I think that comes the remembering of all the other, because you're only reviewing this life as far as I'm aware.
Yes, that's what I
you're not sitting down reviewing every life and this one. It's just one at a time each time you return.
Yeah.
So, but you will then be enlightened and be like, oh yeah, I was also this. And then you realize your name in this life really isn't your name.
No.
You don't have...
It's a label, basically.
A name.
No.
You're just recognized for your energy.
Yeah, you don't need one. You just recognize each other, like you said. Everybody recognizes each other. If you haven't seen that movie yet, so go and see it. It really is. It was funny because I told one of my clients to watch it, and I was being silly, and I said it's a documentary. And she said, oh, I love documentaries. I was like, no, I was just kind of being silly because Keanu Reeves says that The Matrix is a documentary. But really, this movie is very, very accurate. Yeah. It's very accurate. So whoever wrote it is connected, for sure. On the subject of movies, there are a lot of movies about near-death experiences, a lot of which I realized that we haven't seen, because I'm like, wait, I don't know that. The only one on the list that I've seen is Flatliners. And that one's kind of freaky.
I don't remember.
No. It's, well, there's the original that's Julia Roberts, and who else is in it?
Oh, vaguely, okay.
Yeah. And
Kevin Bacon?
Yes. Yeah. And they do it on purpose. They like, are, I want to say that they're doctors or something, or maybe whatever, and then so they have equipment and they can use all the equipment to die and come back.
Right.
But it's kind of freaky, the things that they see. It's not like it's pleasant like it really is. So it's definitely not a movie I would base your idea of a near-death experience on. But it is an interesting movie. I haven't seen these other ones. Hereafter, which is 2010 with Matt Damon. One of the ones I want to see, I told you, is Ghost Town. And this is Ricky Gervais and Greg Kinnear. And Ricky Gervais, I believe, has a Great Dane in this movie, too. Oh. But the basis is that he dies and he has the near-death experience. And when he wakes up from it, he can talk to spirits. So that's the gist.
In Heaven Can Wait,
that was a good one.
Does he come back, or does he really die?
No, I'm pretty sure he really dies. Okay. I can't remember. It's been so long. Oh, maybe not. That would... I don't know. Possibly.
That movie as a young kid tripped me a little bit, you know.
It's a good one.
It didn't scare me. It was more like, wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah, we should watch it, because I honestly don't remember. Like, the movie's called Heaven Can Wait, so you would think that he would come back. But I just have, like, clips
I don't remember.
being dead.
The whole concept of like someone, that was my first introduction really to understanding.
Yeah.
Like someone passing, but being able to be here.
Right.
And witness what was happening in this dimension. So
Yep.
It was actually a cool movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'd like to watch it again. That would be cool. Heaven is for Real is another one. This is a Christian drama. It's about a 4-year-old that experienced heaven during an emergency surgery from 2014. I've heard really good things about it because it's a true story. So it talks,
Cool.
4 years old that has a near-death experience.
Right.
I believe
Wow.
it's a true story. But yeah, so there's some movies to watch.
Cool.
And yeah, that's my episode on near-death experiences. I really was hoping that I have do we have some time? Because I do have one of our listeners whose husband had a near-death experience, because I was hoping to like have a guest or something, but nobody really that we know that closely or that's around here, whatever, has had one. So I did put on the discussion group asking if anybody had one before. And Ashley said this. She said, my husband had an NDE experience when he was 25. He said he saw his mom and she spoke to him, not yet. We had been married for almost 2 years and had a 3.5-year-old and a 3-month-old. I went to get the baby up when I saw my husband laying in bed on his back. His skin was white and his lips were blue. He was aspirating and foam was coming out of his mouth. He was snoring so loud I called it the snore. I tried to shake him and call his name to wake him up, but nothing. I panicked and called our friend that was a paramedic. He told me to call 911, and I did. On the phone, they told me to turn him on his side. I tried, but couldn't. Once the paramedics got there, they tried everything and still couldn't get him to wake up, so they rushed him to the hospital, where after a few hours he woke up and told me he saw his mom. I was in the room with him. When he saw her, he actually called out Mom. He had been in and out of consciousness and on oxygen, hooked up to all kinds of machines. He spent 7 days in the hospital, the worst day of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, that's intense. But that's really cool. That has to be like a really amazing feeling to see your mom. First of all, that alone, just to see her and be like, there she is. She's still there. I know that when I go, I'll be able to see her.
Yeah.
But then for her to say, not yet.
Right.
You gotta go back because you gotta take care of your family and your kid, your family. You know.
Well, it's kind of like you said too. When we unfortunately all had to watch George Floyd lose his life on television, with I'm not even going to give that guy a label.
No.
And I won't even call him an officer of the law.
No.
But inhumane person's knee on his neck until he lost his life, but you hear him call his mom.
Yep.
And I don't believe he was calling his mama because he was scared of dying. He was seeing her because he was dying.
Right. I don't know if everybody knows that, but his mom was dying. His mom had died, and he was calling her. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I truly believe that he was seeing her at that point. Yeah.
He was. And that's, you know, for Ashley, that was a probably terrible experience for her to go through.
For sure.
I would be curious to know how that affected her husband afterwards.
Yeah, I'll have to ask her.
You know, did it change him at all? Did it maybe just his beliefs or his demeanor? Did something change through that experience? You know, it'd be neat to know. Yeah,
definitely. I'll have to ask her because, too, they were talking about this on the Medium episodes, is that a lot of times things will happen, you know, you might have a medium reading and it's 100% on and you know that you're connected to your loved one, but then your brain starts to play tricks on you and, you know, over time those memories diminish. And so I wonder if that happens with a near-death experience too, if it's just over time you start to like maybe question whether you had that to begin with, you know, because I know that before I learned that I was a medium, even though I could communicate with animals, I still wasn't 100% convinced that there was another side.
Right.
Now 100%, 1,000,000% convinced. There's nothing you could say that could talk me out of it.
No.
But sometimes you have to be in this kind of position to see that that's the case. It's not, you know, just talking to a medium or just having a near-death experience. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change you forever.
Well, no, it doesn't. And like the friend that I had, whose story I shared, I don't think it changed him I don't know him at the time.
Yeah.
But he still shared the story many years later with me with absolutely no denial, about what he believed it being true. He definitely believed it. I think that part of near-death experiences are more than just a near-death experience. There's a reason for it.
Right, absolutely.
And as scary as it might be, you're given an opportunity to see the beauty and the wonder of the other side. Right. And if you're given the gift to return and told not yet, and you're put back in your body, what do you do with that?
Right. Yep.
Because you've gotten a glimpse of what many, and a chance that many don't ever get.
Yep.
And I think it's a way for each one of us to individually look at and go, why was I brought here?
Right.
To this point of questioning this and either deciding to believe in it or not, or doing my own research and homework to come to that conclusion. Why?
Right. Yep.
We all have a reason and a story and something that we've got to work out in our souls here, now.
Absolutely.
And if you have that experience, I'm sorry, because I don't know if I would want to go through it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're back.
Yeah, exactly.
There has to be a reason.
There's always a reason. When we talked about the negative near-death experiences, I want to explain that the reason that I'm not skeptical about those. I believe that people do truly have those, but I don't believe that they're actually going to hell or seeing demons, because those things don't exist. No. Those things are just in our head. Mm-hmm. So that's why when I say I'm a little bit confused by those and I don't quite know what they mean, is because there's no possible way that they're anything negative.
The people that have that perception.
Yeah,
I think it's
their perception.
I think it has a multitude of reasons why somebody would have, maybe their upbringing.
Right.
Maybe they were brought up in a religious family, and then so you equate everything according to what, the Bible may say or whatever the scripture is. And if there's punishment or something, that may be your state of mind as you see yourself about ready to die.
Yeah,
you might be like
already
thinking, here it goes,
right?
Judgment.
Yeah, that's true.
But the truth is it's just you.
Yep.
It's just you judging you.
Yep.
Nobody else.
That's right.
You have to look at you. So we can do it here, and I think that's part of the reason why some of us are being brought to this, if not everybody that's been brought to this, and then people that have these NDE experiences.
Right.
Is that there's something for you to learn.
Yes. There's always something for you to learn. Absolutely. I agree.
And so it's a very good question of why do people perceive these things?
Yeah.
Well, that's all on an individual basis because we're all individual.
I would love to talk to somebody that had one of those negative ones just to see what was your mindset, where were you in your life when you had that, and try and analyze why something like that happens. What is it about your brain that makes that happen? Your perception, how that's very, very strong, Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Very.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, I like the topic.
Yeah.
I always like to read stories on those. And that episode, I would definitely recommend Surviving Death on Netflix. First episode is good. They're all good. We've only seen the medium ones, but those were good as well. And that was interesting because that's like seeing my job through the eyes of Netflix.
Yeah.
It was very weird.
Yeah.
Because I forget sometimes that people don't believe this. Not everybody believes this.
No.
Because it's so real to me that I don't care.
It's okay.
I don't notice anymore.
I look at that, and that kind of part of what I see going on is, in our world, in our society, and especially our country, is one side doesn't believe the other side, and the other side doesn't believe the other side, and that's okay.
Yep.
All right?
There's always going to be skeptics.
It's what we do with that is what's important.
Yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, not everybody has to believe this or see this, but I tell you what, we all are going to face it.
Yep.
Bottom line.
That's right.
So we can debate all we want.
That's right.
But the truth is I have no doubt from myself.
Oh, no, me
I have
either.
100% no doubt.
Yep.
So, cool. Well, before we say goodbye to everybody, would you like to share your page?
Yes. You can find everything you need to know about me on my website at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. If you would like to send a message to us, our email is spiritualjoneses@gmail.com. We love to hear your comments on the show and show ideas and all of that good stuff.
Nice.
And you, sir?
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com, for the web, at djonesartcollection for Facebook and Instagram. And for the music, gypsybrown.com for the web, at gypsybrownmusic for Instagram, and at gypsybrownband for Facebook. We've been a little bit on a pause because of our lovely pandemic, rising again. So, but we're still making little movements and getting mixes done. So we're coming along. Just another roadblock, but ain't gonna stop us.
Nope. Everything happens the way it's supposed to.
Yep.
So.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yep. Thank
you
very much.
We hope you got something out of it.
That we do.
And we hope everybody has a wonderful week. Until next week. Peace and love.